ask you to identify the features of ballistic missiles or cruise missiles. So that is one thing. Or otherwise, simple questions would be like, for example, on a particular missile, there can be a question stating that consider the following statements with respect to BrahMos 2, and they may give 3 to 4 statements, and there can be such questions. Okay, or in other words, one-liner questions could be like this. For example, BrahMos missile is a kind of supersonic, hypersonic, subsonic, or ballistic missile. So such kind of questions can be given. So from that point of view, we have to be acquainted with all such formats. Okay. So now let us try to see some of the basic aspects related to defense technology, and then let's move on in depth. Okay. So it is very well known fact to all of you as well as everyone that the organization that is concerned with defense technology, manufacturing, everything. So in India is nothing but DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. So DRDO. So in DRDO we have Research and Development Wing, so which works under the Ministry of Defense under the Government of India. So that is the organization concerned. Okay. So then we have established this in the year 1958. So this is another aspect that you have to keep in mind. Okay. Then apart from this, we have another organization called like Defense Innovation Organization. So Defense Innovation Organization is another organization which works in the field of defense technology. So here this directly works under the Ministry of Defense. This has been registered as a society, registered as a company under the Companies Act 2013. Have you heard about Companies Act 2013? So under Companies Act 2013, this Defense Innovation Organization has been a registered company. It's a kind of company. So we can say likewise. So if you talk about founding members of this, so there are some important founding organizations like HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, as well as like BEL, like BHEL, Bharat Electronics Limited. So BEL, these two are the founding members of this Defense Innovation Organization. So remember two important organizations under defense technology. Okay, so that is one. So then if you look at this summary, so instead of wasting time, simply if you directly look at the summary of the classification of the missiles. So basically if we talk about missile, so can you say what is a missile is basically all about? What is a missile? Basic question. Missile. Missile means what? Good. So missile, it's a type of rocket. In simple manner to say, missile is a type of rocket. But why we will use this rocket? Means we will use this type of rocket to hit a target with a kind of explosive material. Like for example, take up any enemy air base, enemy military base, or enemy targeted sites. So if we want to hit them, we need to have some vehicles to hit. We need to have some weapons to hit. So there, missiles are nothing but they are type of rockets which are used to hit the targeted sites with the help of explosives. Okay. So here explosives would be two types. One would be chemical explosives, other would be nuclear explosives. Okay. So if we take from that perspective, basically missiles can be categorized into two types. Okay. So based on the warhead they will use, they can be classified into two types. First one is conventional warhead missiles. Second one is strategic warhead missiles. Okay. That means remember basically make it like missile is a kind of rocket. You might have observed rocket, how it goes and how it looks. So you might have know that. So remember, I imagine that a rocket with conventional explosive like chemical explosives. When a missile carries chemical explosive, then that is known as conventional warhead missile. Okay. When a missile carries radioactive material or nuclear material so as to target the enemy areas, so such kind of missiles would be known as strategic missiles or nuclear warhead missiles. So these are the two types of missiles based on the type of material or the warheads they will carry. Okay, so this is basically warhead. Warhead means it is the part of that rocket which carries the explosive. Okay, explosive. Yes, simply like the place where the explosive would be stored is nothing but warhead. Okay, so can you see at the front of the rocket there we can see some tip of the rocket. So there you will have some fuel. So we will have the explosive. Once it goes and hits, so then it gets detonated. So that is that. So that is nothing but warhead. Okay, so that is one. So this is based on the material or based on the warhead type. Okay, so then if we look from its path that it follows, there are two important types of missiles. So basically based on the type or based on the path they will follow, there are two types of missiles. So one is nothing but the ballistic missile, other one is nothing but the cruise missile. Okay, so ballistic missile and cruise missile. So first let us try to discuss what are ballistic missiles and what are cruise missiles. Okay, understanding this will clear you a lot of things. Okay, for example, recently we said zircon missile is a hypersonic missile. Okay, so if you know what is a hypersonic missile, then you can understand various properties of zircon missiles. For example, BrahMos, if you say BrahMos, which kind of missile it is? Is it a ballistic missile or cruise missile? Good, it's a cruise missile. So cruise missile means some things without by hearting you can understand if you know cruise missile. Okay, let's try to understand that basics so that you don't need to by heart some things. Okay, so try to listen carefully and just observe here carefully. So first let us try to proceed with the ballistic missile. Okay, so here when we talk about ballistic missile, it's basically a type of rocket, you remember, which follows ballistic trajectory. So remember, it follows a ballistic trajectory. Okay, so here we are getting one word called ballistic trajectory. So then we have to understand what is this ballistic trajectory. Okay, so ballistic trajectory means it's a kind of curved path that is being followed by the missile. Okay, so just remember that you have to remember all the basics which we have studied in space technology also. What is space? Till which area we will call it as space? What is the good? So at 100 kilometers, we have a conventional boundary line that has been drawn. So that is nothing but Kármán line. Good, one Kármán line. So this line, above to that, we will call it as space from Earth's perspective. Okay. So remember, if this is the Earth's surface, and now you remember this is roughly at a height of, let's say, 100 kilometers. Okay, and you just take this would be like beyond that. So it is 100 kilometers. This is Earth's surface, and what does ballistic missile will do means ballistic missile will have a curved path. So if you launch a missile, let's say for example, if this is the missile that you are launching from the Earth, so then it takes a curved path. So like usually this would be like, let's say, a parabolic shape. So that kind of curved path followed by the ballistic missile is known as ballistic trajectory. Okay, so this shape is known as parabolic shape. Have you come across this parabolic shape? So parabolic shape. So now what happens in this ballistic missile? Try to understand. Now what we will do here, now this we will take up this missile, and for this missile an initial velocity would be given. Initial velocity will be given. So with this initial velocity, it moves up. Okay, it moves up and it would be taken up to a height. So assume that this is the highest point that it reaches. Highest point it reaches. And after reaching one highest point, that means at the peak point, then it will be automatically dropped under the target. Let's assume that there is a target here. Okay, so this will come and this will hit this particular target automatically. That means for a particular period only we will guide it. That for a particular period only we will lift it. After that, under the influence of gravity, so it will fall and it will hit the target. Remember these two aspects. That means we are giving an initial velocity and we are taking it to a peak stage, and then from there it falls on its own. That means if we talk from the perspective of the fuel that we use here, little amount of fuel we will use, because for some period only we are guiding it, and after that it falls on its own. Okay, so in this journey try to just locate these aspects, that this is the earth's surface, this is the space boundary line, and this is the space, entirely space. Now you assume that this is, we will call it as atmosphere, isn't it? So within 100 kilometers range we will call basically as atmosphere. That means where we can see the important layers of the earth will be present. So if we talk from the perspective of a ballistic missile will travel most of its journey outside the atmosphere. Okay, outside the atmosphere, you see. Okay, so look at this journey. So small part of its journey would be there within the atmosphere, this, but rather if you consider, most of its journey would be present in the atmosphere, outside the atmosphere. So this is one important thing that you have to understand. So if you just analyze some of the missiles, usually these missiles can be sometimes taken up to 1400 kilometers height. 1400 kilometers height, and from that height they would be dropped. Are you getting that? So that means they will travel to a very huge heights, and from there they will fall. So that would be the mechanism of ballistic missiles. Okay, now this missile is there at this position, like assume at this position. So from it can hit one target also, it can hit multiple targets also. So this is another important thing that you can remember. That means a ballistic missile will have the ability to hit not only one fixed target, but it can also hit multiple targets at a time. So this is another important point that you have to remember. Okay, but assume that we are using this ballistic missile and it is falling on its own. Okay, so here assume if the target is moving, can it hit? No, it can't hit, because we have already fixed its target, and we have, by keeping this as the target, we have lifted it to that heights. So keeping that all calculations in mind. So once it comes to here, whatever the target, wherever we have fixed the target, there itself it hit. Are you getting that? So there would be a computer along with it, so which guides it. Are you getting? So from that point of view, ballistic missiles can hit only fixed targets. They will work only for fixed targets or predetermined targets, only fixed targets, not for moving targets. So this is another important thing that you have to keep in mind. Okay, so I hope these are some of the important aspects related to this, and I hope you have understood. Yes.
So the last point was on Jeremiah said that at once it can hit multiple targets. Then he said that it will be only if it's can you explain those?
Targets can be of two types: moving targets and fixed targets. Like for example, military base. Military base is a fixed target. Like in the similar fashion, you assume a fighter jet, aircraft. Aircraft would be a moving target. Okay, so if you talk from the perspective of the ballistic missiles can hit only fixed targets like military bases or like such kind of fixed things. Okay, whereas moving things means like aircrafts, they cannot be used to hit them. Multiple targets means there can be multiple fixed targets, one military base, other some other things, so they can hit likewise. So that is multiple targets. Are you getting that? So that is with reference to basic things, reference to ballistic missiles. Is that clear? Yes, multiple targets, fixed multiple targets. Okay, sometimes the missiles will be with multiple rocket barrel launchers. So missile can be there fitted with multiple barrel rocket systems. That means one missile will have multiple barrels. Multiple barrels means, like for example, if you take up a gun, the one which is used to hit is nothing but barrel. Okay, so in the gun, that one pistol you will have that one, so that is nothing but barrel. So in a missile, there can be one barrel system or multiple barrel system. Like for example, if you take up an example, there is a multiple barrel rocket system called Pinaka. Pinaka is a guided missile, multiple barrel rocket system. If you use Pinaka missile, so then if you take it up to this height and lift, so then it can hit multiple targets because it will have multiple barrels. Okay, at a time it can hit. It can release the weapons and it can hit the targets. So that is with reference to ballistic missiles. Okay, so yes, MIRV technology. Yeah, in one way, not exactly, but in one way. Okay, so that is one thing. So this is with reference to ballistic missiles. Now let's try to quickly see what we have understood. So ballistic trajectory, have you understood? So now predetermined target, have you understood? Okay, so then its path would be launched, has no active propulsion during its actual flight. Active propulsion means we won't use any fuel further after lifting to a height. Okay, actual propulsion means when it is about to hit the target, at that time we won't use any propulsion system, we won't use any fuel. So under the influence of gravity it automatically hits. So that is one thing. So there won't be any active propulsion system during its actual flight. So that is one thing. Okay, so then what are the factors that determines this ballistic missile? So that is also one important thing. Now you try to understand this. We have lifted it up to here. Okay, now during its lift, think in atmosphere, there can be so many factors. There can be so many factors that may influence its path. So if you look at the factors, they will influence factors that influence this ballistic missiles. First and foremost thing is very important thing is nothing but gravitational force. Gravitational force. Okay, can you able to see? So if gravitational force varies, then there can be issues with respect to the ballistic missile. So does gravitational force vary on the earth? Does gravitational force vary on the earth, or it is uniform all across the earth? Varies? Are you sure? Hmm. Yes, exactly. So when you talk from the perspective of gravitational force is not uniform across the earth, it varies. So how does it vary? So try to just understand. So if this is the earth's equator, at earth's equator, gravitational pull of attraction or gravitational gravity, it would be around 9.7 meters per second. Okay, when you move from earth to equator to poles, at poles we will have more gravitational pull of attraction. So at poles it would be around 9.8 meters per second. So that means in very little points it varies. So if we talk from that perspective, when we move from equator to poles, gravitational force varies. Okay, so for example, you may launch a ballistic missile from a country nearer to equator, and we may launch, for example, if we launch from Japan, so it would be at high altitudes. That means it is nearer to pole somewhere. Are you getting? So based on this also, the ballistic missile may affect it. Okay, so we have to keep this thing and we have to design the ballistic missile. So that is one. Then second thing, when we are taking it high, so in the atmosphere we will have air. So air, will it offer any resistance? Obviously air will offer some resistance. So air resistance would be there. So we also have to consider air resistance. That means assume that there are high speed winds that are blowing. At that time, think that this ballistic missile path may be drifted. If we don't have proper strategy, then due to high speed winds, it can be deflected to somewhere else also. Is there any possibility that while it is falling, don't think at this stage, think at this stage. At this stage, if there is more winds, so we are not using any active propulsion system, so every possibility that it may be drifted and it may hit somewhere. So air resistance would be another thing, so that we have to consider. Okay, so that is one thing. And then if we talk from the perspective of another important force that can affect the ballistic missiles path is the Coriolis force. Okay, so Coriolis force. Okay, so you might have understood what Coriolis force is all about. Okay, so Coriolis force. What is Coriolis force? Earth rotates in which direction? From west to east. So Earth rotates, if this is the axis, so Earth usually it rotates from west to east. So from west to east direction. So when it is rotating, it creates an apparent force. That apparent force developed by Earth during its rotation is nothing but Coriolis force. As it is rotating, it creates a deflection kind of effect on the moving objects. All the moving objects in the northern hemisphere, they will deflect towards their right in the northern hemisphere. In southern hemisphere, all the moving objects, they will deflect towards its left. So that is the effect that is created by Coriolis force. So here it is also a moving body. So when it enters the atmosphere, there is every possibility that it may also get deflected. So it may also affect that one. So that is one another important aspect. So then apart from that, so the initial velocity, initial thrust, if you do not give sufficient velocity, then there is every possibility that it may, instead of going this height, this may reach till this height and it may fall here. So another important thing is that initial thrust or initial velocity. Thrust means force that we give to move a body. So these are some of the important aspects that will determine the efficiency of the ballistic missiles. Okay, so that is one important thing. Okay, so remember these are the factors that will affect that. So then if you see other important aspects, next important aspect, you just look. Yes.
Like after the stage of one, propulsion, so we say that the
That's what, throughout its journey we won't guide it. Throughout its journey we won't guide it. That's why we are saying that till a particular height we will guide it. After that we won't guide it. We will fix the target and it has to have its precise target likewise. Yes. Yes, we can say lock and fire and forget kind of thing. So that we can say like this. So that is one thing. So then look at this point. Short range ballistic missiles stay within the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so we have said that usually the ballistic missiles will go outside the atmosphere. Okay, and look at this statement. Long range and intercontinental ballistic missiles are launched on suborbital flight trajectory and spend most of their flight outside the atmosphere. Okay, so based upon the range of the missiles, we can have different types of missiles. Okay, short range missiles, like just have a look here. Like short range missiles, if it is ballistic missile, we will call it as short range ballistic missiles. Then medium range ballistic missiles, then intermediate range or long range ballistic missiles, or intercontinental ballistic missiles. So likewise, based on the range, based on the distance of the target, we will have different types of missiles. Okay, so here try to catch up the distance here. If the target is located, the range of the target is between 300 kilometers to 1000 kilometers, then such kind of missiles would be known as short range ballistic missiles. So provided if it is following ballistic path. Okay. So if the target is located in a range of 1000 kilometers to 3005 kilometers, 500 kilometers distance, then that is known as the medium range ballistic missiles. Okay. What is long range? Long range means we'll say it as distance 3500 kilometers to 5500 kilometers. So this should be the range. If target is located in this range, then that is long range missiles. Okay. Finally, we will have intercontinental ballistic missiles, continent, across the continent. So it would be beyond 5500 kilometers range, any target, location of the target. So based on this, now you see, have you understood the distances? Now you see, if for short range ballistic missiles, usually it stays within the Earth's atmosphere. That means if the range is in between 300 kilometers to 1000 kilometers, we no need to take it to too high that it falls. So if it is shorter distance, so we need to take it to some height so that it can drop. Likewise, if you need to drop it on intercontinental targets, so then we have to take it to two heights so that it can fall at that range. Okay. So in simple, to make it simple, how this ballistic missile works means, you just imagine you are a cricket player, you are playing the cricket and you have been placed at long on or at the boundary line. And now from there you want to throw the ball. So how will you throw? Will you throw like this or will you throw like this? You will throw like this. So when you throw like this, so then how the ball will go and how the like keeper, wicket keeper or the bowler will catch it. So it follows, at that time it follows the ballistic trajectory, that is parabolic trajectory. So in the similar fashion, the ballistic missile also will go and it will hit. That means you are guessing that if I throw with this much speed, then it reaches this the target at that thing. So initial velocity, initial thrust, all those things matters. So here, will there be accuracy, that if you are throwing exactly it goes and it will land at the wicket keeper? No, we cannot say accuracy would be 100%. Accuracy is, the chances of accuracy of reaching the target would be little less. It may reach, but accuracy might be somewhere, it may go here and there, so they may catch it. In the similar fashion, accuracy for ballistic missiles also will be less compared to cruise missiles. Okay, when you understand cruise missiles, then you will get to understand about the accuracy. Okay, actually in ballistic missiles we will use rocket engine system, and the other would be like jet engine system. Okay, two types of engine systems would be there, rocket engine and jet engine system. Both of them, what is the basic logic behind both of them are, both of them will use Newton's third law of motion. So what is Newton's third law of motion? Yes, very good. So for every action there would be equal and opposite reaction. So both the rocket engine system and the rocket engine, so it will use rocket engine. So what is rocket engine system means? Now you see, so if you try to understand what is rocket engine system, so rocket would be like this. Okay, so and it would be fitted up with some fuel here. Okay, and it will have some fuel exhausting thing. So usually what will happen, we will in rocket engines, one way it will eject the mass. It will eject the mass. Upon ejecting the mass, it gets some thrust to move front. So when the mass is ejected, that means when the fuel is burnt, it gets some thrust, and this thrust will make it to move forward. It moves forward. Okay, so this is the method that we will use with respect to the ballistic missiles. That means we will give an initial thrust, we will burn the fuel, so it takes a flight and it moves, and with this ejecting mass, So until mass would be there, until fuel would be there, it will burn, and after taking to that height, then fuel will get complete, then automatically it takes and it flies there. So rocket engine technology would be used here. Okay. So contrary to this, there would be other engine called jet engine. Okay, jet engine. So how jet engine will work? Now, you just imagine, most of you or some of you might have traveled through flight, or some of you have watched the flight also, airplane, how it looks. So it would be in horizontal way, like, can you able to just see? So this would be like this. Okay, so here you can have the things like this. So can you see that it will have fuel here? So what happens in jet engines? Jet engine will fly in horizontal path by ejecting the fuel like this. Okay, it will leave the fuel like this, so it moves far. So it goes like this. Whereas rocket engine, it thrust would be like this and movement would be like this. Its thrust would be like this, so its movement would be like this. So it will release the fuel like this, so it moves ahead like this. So if we talk from the perspective of cruise missiles will use this jet engine technology. Okay, once we go through cruise missiles, then you can understand better. Okay, so that is one thing. So remember, this is the difference between the engine system with respect to ballistic as well as cruise missiles. Okay, so that is one thing. So have you understood this range? So remember this thing. For example, if you say Agni 5 is an intercontinental ballistic missile, if you are saying that, then you have to remember all these aspects. Path. There should not be any confusion with reference to these aspects. Question can be that, like, Agni 5 missiles trajectory can be influenced by which of the following paths, which of the following factors? That they are not using ballistic missile, Agni 5 missile. So you have to have the clarity that it is a ballistic missile and it is an intercontinental ballistic missile, and they may give some points. So there, if we are saying that it is ballistic missile, all these points you have to remember. Okay, and when we are saying it as intercontinental ballistic missile, you have to remember the range. Okay, so these things should be self-understood. Okay, likewise you remember, then you no need to by heart so many things, because we'll have a lot of missiles. Okay.